Yes, buckle your seatbelt.
Hello, all. Today I have back with me Rambling Canucks Roundtable, and today we're doing Star Trek Next Generation Encounter at Farpoint Part 1. And with me, as always, is Captain Trek, and Vance Major has agreed once again to join the roundtable, and as we explore TNG. So I just want to welcome everyone to the roundtable today. Welcome, Captain Trek. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Not too bad. And you, Vance?
So, finer than frog here, my friend.
Awesome. Okay, so to give everybody an idea, we made the part where we ended, right where the Enterprise and the uh, oh wow, my brain just totally went. Where we got ship porn. Yay.
Excelsior.
The Excelsior. There we go. I knew it was in there. I was thinking Excalibur for some reason. Wow, my brain is gone. I need more coffee. Okay, so anyway, so what was your we'll go around and kind of get just a summary of what you thought of, the shaping of the crew, and then we'll get into the episode. So what was yours, Trek?
I'd like I, I'd like Vance to go first, please.
Okay, go ahead, Vance.
Well, I loved the beauty shot of the Enterprise D. That was something that you had when we were watching it. That was something that you had mentioned. I loved the engineering part of it. The setup of like the characters of like Geordi, Worf, Data, which were three of my favorite characters growing up. Um, Especially Worf, because I love the idea of a Klingon on the bridge. Um, that was such a contrast to like the original series where the Klingons were the enemies. Having a Klingon on the bridge of the Enterprise, that was such a cool thing to me as a kid. And then Data being an android, to me, I was just like, whoa, that's so cool. I understood they were that was their version of Spock, per se, but to me, I that never even crossed my mind. I was just like, wow, that's a robot. That's really awesome. So to me, I loved those. I loved that aspect of it. To me, watching this, it's great nostalgia. But watching it this time, I really had to turn the nostalgia off. And again, looking at it critically, there was a lot of great hits, but there's also some misses here with this film. So, or with this episode, with the introduction of Q. This is a little bit more serious of a take of a villain than as is in the latter part of the series. So it establishes quite a bit. I didn't quite care for Troy. Didn't quite care for Yar. Dr. Crusher's just kind of there. Wesley Crusher is my hero. He was my hero growing up because I love the idea of, a kid on the Enterprise, which is also something that's kind of strange when you think about, kids being on a military vessel. But I think that was also something that was reflective of the times. Starfleet's such a peaceful organization. We have counselors on board. Like that's very 80s. So again, that's the sign of the times of what Star Trek wanted to be at the times. So it established quite a bit. So it's a very strange part one of the episode. So, Captain Trek, what about you?
Well, see, I liked I loved the opening. That is, it was just iconic to actually see the Enterprise. Um, the I agree with you as far as Crusher and Yar. Um, looking back, I'm going, why didn't they just leave her frozen? The
Yeah.
character was so overacted. It's just like this. this character sucks. I'm glad that they tried to bring some character to her, but in the beginning, it's just like, why would I like her? She's not likable.
Well, she has the ability to be overacted and wooden at the same time. So it's like, how the heck do you? I mean, wow, that takes talent and lack thereof at the same time. Like, wow, that's way to go.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah.
So, for me, spoiler alert: this is my jam. TNG is my jam. This is where I'm at. For these reviews, I'm going to have to really, really, really turn off that side of my brain because I really like me some TNG. However, Vance, I'm sorry, but Wesley. Oh God, Wesley.
Oh, I agree.
I'm sorry.
I hate
that sum him up. He drives me nuts. But anyway, I digress. Wesley was like Jar Jar Binks. Yeah.
What?
Only more annoying.
Oh, yeah. Oh my. Oh, yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, don't get me started on Wesley. Oh boy. But anyway, so now as the series begins and like this episode begins and we see the Enterprise and we get that beautiful intro. I've always loved the intro to TNG. The music, the ship shots, everything was just it's always been one of my favorite openings. And then we see Picard and he starts his monologue at the beginning. And I really liked it because it started to introduce us to Picard. And this episode, I think, one of my takeaways from this so far is it's really an introduction of Picard and the main cast. And Picard kind of testing certain things and trying to get a footing. And then, of course, the other thing with this episode, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but it introduces one of my favorite villains in Star Trek, which is Q.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Grappler Zorn. That was your favorite villain.
No. Q.
Oh, dang it.
Q's the man. Snap of the fingers and oh darn, something happened. I always liked Q, except for later on in Voyager, but TNG era, Q's the shit. So we see, they're starting, they're on their way, then Q stops them. And so I kind of want to get everybody's theory on the first interactions with Q and then move on to the trial. So kind of lump those two portions in, because I'm going to get long-winded because this is TNG. So let's try to rein me in here, and just the two first interactions. So the Q on the bridge and then Q at the trial, and just your thoughts of how this is progressing. And we'll start. We'll go around the table, and Vance, you go first.
Well, the bridge interaction scene, it's great in how he's condescending with the crew. By him being in an army uniform, and then the weird styrofoam looking piece where he's like in a military-esque type guard uniform or whatever that thing is. It's almost like you would when you're kind of toying with a bug. And I enjoy that aspect of it because he doesn't respect Picard. He's not jovial. Again, this isn't the Q that we know and love in the latter part of the series. So if you're just looking at it from that aspect, it's very much like Trelane from the original series. And that's why any classic Star Trek fan would watch this and go, oh, I like this. Because it could be really terrifying because this guy can do almost anything. When the whatever that kind of chain link fence looking thing is, or Tholian web looking thing, like that's also very terrifying because you're like, how big does this thing go? So the Enterprise D, tries to get away from it, and then it turns into this weird orb-looking thing, which I don't think works. I don't think that thing looks good, and you both agreed to me when we were watching it, and I made comment of that. That was the only thing that kind of took me out of the moment. I'm like, what is that? I liked the chain link fence looking thing. I liked that. But when they go to the trial, Picard, he kind of outsmarts him. And that to me, I really thought spoke well to Picard's character. And I didn't enjoy Picard's character for the most part in part one. And you and I had kind of discussed, that Picard was not a favorite of mine in this episode. He does come across very cold. Picard as a character didn't grow on to me until maybe mid season 2 or season 3. And in this episode, he really doesn't grow on to me until he has that conversation with Riker when he warmly greets him and says, "Welcome to the Enterprise, Commander Riker." And he smiles. And of course that's done on purpose, but as an 8-year-old kid, I just was very turned off of that. In hindsight, I can look at Picard and say, yes, I can see why they did that. Why he's very cold. Why he's distant. That's just that character. But in terms of the trial, like he really did outsmart Q, and that annoys that character. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. It really does kind of take you aback when I was a kid, I'd watch that and be like, man, humanity's never going to get to those post-apocalyptic horror trial things. And as we kind of look at everything now, it's kind of like, oh man, we might just get to this point, So it's very telling of like where, humanity could be going and where we could possibly go past that point to the Star Trek future, So I'm looking at things through different lenses, where I was as a kid and then now with an analytical mind. So I really do enjoy both of those scenes for much different reasons now than I did when I was a kid. So,
All right, and Captain Trek.
And I have to agree. We're watching this through different eyes because we're looking back. But to be honest, I liked Picard. He wasn't Kirk. And to be honest, I was kind of excited at the time to see something really new and exciting. And to be honest, this episode really wasn't bad at all, but it wasn't exciting as I thought it would be. And but it was a good start at the same time, because it gave you some glimpse of what Picard would become. Like I said before, with there's Troy, there's what's her name? Security chief Yar. Just no, I didn't like him. I like Data. Data came across, he's cool. And really, those are the only two of the main cast that we've really seen much of so far, other than introducing Riker towards the end of this episode.
Yes, and so for me, I really liked I really liked the banter between the mind chess between Q and Picard, both on the bridge and then later on in the trial. And I like how no matter how superior Q seems to think he is, or he actually is, Picard still finds a way to knock him down a peg just by outthinking him or using his own words against him, as we see later on in the trial. And instead of what I always liked about Q was instead of admitting that he's wrong, he acts like what the character suggests was what he was thinking all along. This was all part of his plan. And it's like, no, you kicked my butt in this, and this didn't turn out the way I wanted. But I'm going to make you think that I'm not. No. This was all part of my plan. This is good. This is good. Yeah, you should have just let me off you. But okay, you want to go ahead? It's all up to you. Go right ahead, Bucko. All right. And I really liked that. I really enjoyed even when I was younger, when I was watching this, it made me fall in love with Q. Picard, I always liked right out of the gate. Yar, I don't know. I wasn't exactly sad to see her go. I prefer, knowing what I know now, I prefer Worf in that position. Riker was interesting at the beginning. And I really liked, and I'll kind of skip ahead here a little bit. I really like how Riker is, he's already got his game face on while he's waiting for the Enterprise, and he's starting to notice things like the apple that wasn't there a minute ago. And he's, well, okay, I'm eager, I want to prove myself kind of mentality. And Riker carries that for most of the first 3 seasons. And right away, Picard tests him with the, hey, you're going to do this manual, okay, Bucko? Yeah, you just reconnect my ship, please. And do it manually, because you should be able to do it.
See, that's the thing about the, like we were discussing during the episode itself. That I know your reasoning for liking it was that it kind of builds the relationship between Picard and Riker, but for me, it really slows down the episode, because you're getting to the action, you're getting to know some of the characters, you're involved with, okay, this is progressing the episode, and then all of a sudden you get to, okay, we got to reconnect the ship. To me, I enjoyed the scene right after that where Picard and Riker are sitting in the ready, or what would be the kind of brief
lounge.
Yes, observation lounge, and they're having that kind of heart to heart where they're actually connecting. But I mean, I certainly understand where you're saying, he's kind of testing him. I get that, but for me, if he's already the executive officer of your ship, should you really be testing him? It's like that. Does that really matter? To me, I found it more interesting to have that heart to heart where he's like, hey, there's children on the ship, I don't want to look like an ass, so cover me. And he's like, yeah, no problem. And to me, I really liked that, where the scene right before that is just like, it kind of just slows down, where when the Enterprise separated, I really got goosebumps. Even watching it, a little bit ago with you guys, like I still got that goosebump feeling. And as the star drive section flies by the camera, we all were like, man, that's really badass. All of us were like that.
The separation is badass.
Yeah.
And then later on, I can get what you mean, but it does kind of, you hit that, okay, slow down. And everything is like, hold on and wait. But Captain Trek, let's get some of your opinion on this.
Well, see, I thought it was kind of an asshole move. It's like, you weren't on the ship. Things were going on. Oh, by the way, here, you take care of reconnecting the ship, and make sure you do it manually.
Yeah.
It's like, you're the first officer. I'm the captain. I'll be an asshole.
Yeah.
To me, it kind of felt like we don't have anything for Jonathan Frakes to do in this scene. Let's give Will Riker something to do. And to me, it's just kind of like, this feels like extra fluff. It doesn't need to be here. Let's give him something else to do. And again, I think it's just a taste issue. I just didn't care for it. So I mean, it's not bad. It's just not for me.
Yeah, I get it. And okay, so they reconnect the ship, and then we get they're aware that they're on trial. They're going to be, they have to prove themselves to Q that they've changed. And then now this is kind of where we'll kind of wrap this up. Is what was everybody's thoughts of McCoy coming on ship? Vance?
I thought it was a highlight. I mean, you have the doctor from the old crew, kind of passing the torch to the new one. The thing about it is, like, it of course wasn't Kirk and it wasn't Spock, because of course those actors, some could say they're kind of full of themselves, or at least at that point in time, the actors were kind of full of themselves, maybe. But DeForest Kelley has always been kind of a humble guy. So for someone like that to kind of be like, hey, I want to see these guys succeed, so I'll come on and do it. To me, it's like, knowing what I know now and watching that scene, he's always just been kind of a kind-hearted guy, kind of like James Doohan. So when I watch the scene now, I have a really soft spot in my heart for that scene, because it's like, that's such a nice thing to do as one generation passing the torch to another. It's not like it was with Quark doing it for Voyager or Picard doing it for DS9. This was never really done before, and he didn't have to do that. So for me, it's genuinely a nice thing to do, and bless his heart. I loved it. I really loved it. I thought it was a great scene, and the gesture was just it was an awesome thing to do.
Cap?
See, I liked how they made it obvious that Data was the symbolically like Spock in the Next Generation, because just because of Bones' lines. I don't see any points in your ears, boy, but you sound like a Vulcan.
Yeah, I love that line.
It's directly, it's not quite in your face, saying this is, a replacement, whatever. But it's kind of there to, you got Spock kind of mentioned in the moment without being there. And you got McCoy, and, their relationship. So it's just kind of, this is an homage to what Trek was originally. To have McCoy do the walk-on role, and you reintroduce the character as he is in the future, and then he leaves the ship.
Yeah, and like watching it now, I have so much a different view of that scene than when I was young, and I just first saw this episode, because my immediate reaction was, "Who the hell is that?" And what's he do? None of this made any sense when I was younger, because I hadn't seen the original series. TNG was my entry point to Star Trek. So when I was younger, this scene made no sense to me, because I had never seen McCoy before this. So now seeing it, knowing what I know now, I have a much more appreciation for what was done in this scene than what I did originally. Because originally it didn't land, because
There was no context. Yeah.
there's no context. But now there's context, and it's just so much more of a powerful scene, and the jokes land more than what they did when it first was released to me, when I first saw it.
Right.
So I kind of chuckled when the language between Data and McCoy, and I really liked it. And so overall, I gave this episode, and I'm not gonna give it the fanboy service. I'm gonna be fair, and I'm gonna give it a 6.5, 7. Yeah, 6.5, 7. Vance?
As a kid, I would have given it a 10 because I loved it. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. Just because you had all the glory shots, you had great character coming in and everything, and I thought it was just great. But I have to be fair, looking at it from a critical perspective. There's a lot of filler in this. It's the Grappler Zorn stuff was boring. The scene with it took way too long to get from A to B, and honestly I feel like if I had to get up to go take a piss and I come back and I'm like, I feel like I don't miss anything, that's terrible for me. Especially during the action scene, like I love the flyby part. However, when they're in the warp scene, like I just, a lot of it's just it just feels like it takes way too long. So I would also have to give it a 6.5. Like in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, A, B, C, D, E, A, B, C, D, F, and so I'm thinking it's probably about a C. So I'd probably say about maybe a 6.5 would be for me.
Yep. Totally fair.
I think that's about where I stand.
Yep.
So
Cap?
Yeah, I'd have to give it about a 6.5 as well.
Okay, so that'll wrap up Encounter at Farpoint Part 1. Next week, we will do Part 2. And once again, I'd like to thank the gentleman who came to the round table today, Vance Major from No Budget Productions and Captain Trek. Thank you both for coming on.
Thank you very much for having us.
wow, yeah, thanks, absolutely, man.
And please do like, share, subscribe. And until next time, take her easy, folks.